There are stories that aren't just told to be listened to, but to remind us that no matter how cruel life gets, there's always a narrow path waiting for us to find our way back to ourselves. Today, on Deep Life Stories, I want to share with you a real journey. The journey of a man who once believed he had lost everything, only to discover that it was inside that very loss where he found what truly matters most. The story is called, "The Moment I Thought I Had Lost Everything Was Exactly When I Started Living for Real." Let's listen together. If you asked me what moment in my life made me believe everything was truly over, that there was no road left to walk, I wouldn't hesitate for a second. It was a pouring rainy afternoon in Seattle. The rain hammered against the huge glass windows on the 34th floor. Down below, the city blurred behind sheets of water, neon lights flickering like distant dreams. I stood there, gripping the edge of the conference table so tightly my knuckles turned white, heart pounding, as the CEO, the man I had respected for years, slowly opened his mouth and said, "We've decided to give the vice president of marketing position to Ryan." Those words hit me like a cold knife straight through the chest. I had waited 3 long years for that promotion, 3 years of 70, sometimes 80-hour weeks, 3 years missing Lily's 7th and 8th birthdays because of business trips, 3 years looking into Sarah's eyes, my wife who had stood by me through the hardest times, and lying to her. "Just a little longer, honey. I promise. After this promotion, everything will change." I truly believed my sacrifices would be rewarded. I believed the hard work, the loyalty, the sleepless nights would be seen and valued. But they weren't. Ryan got the job. Younger, less experienced, but with a charming smile and the right connections. I kept my composure. I nodded politely, shook his hand, congratulated him in front of everyone. But the moment that meeting room door closed behind me, my legs felt like they had no strength left. I drove home in the pouring rain, my suit completely soaked, my heart even heavier. When I walked through the door, Sarah asked softly, "How was your day, babe?" I could only shake my head. No words came out. My name was Michael Thompson, 42 years old, husband to Sarah, father to Lily, my 9-year-old girl with curly hair and a smile bright like morning sunshine. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, in a typical middle-class family. My dad, a factory worker, taught me only one thing: work hard, son, and life will reward you. Life is fair to those who deserve it. I believed that with every breath I took. I was always the first one in the office and the last one out. I never said no to any task, never complained. I thought I was building a solid future for my family. Turns out, I was only building a beautiful illusion. 2 weeks after that fateful meeting at an internal company party when the alcohol loosened tongues, a friend from HR leaned over to me and whispered, "Ryan is actually the grandson of one of the major shareholders. It came from the top, Mike." I froze right there, in the middle of the music and laughter. Everything around me went blurry. I didn't lose because I wasn't good enough. I lost because I didn't have the right last name, because I was just a hard-working employee with no connections, no backup. That night, driving across the long, empty I-90 bridge with rain still pouring down, I kept repeating in my head one single sentence: "It's not fair. It's not fair." But the rain didn't answer. The highway didn't answer. Life stayed silent in the face of my pain. Then everything got even worse. A month later, the company announced a major restructuring. My entire department was slashed. The position they had once promised me disappeared in a single cold email. No explanation, no second chance, just a severance check for 6 months and a polite good luck. I sat in the company parking lot, staring at that piece of paper, watching the numbers blur in front of my eyes. 15 years of dedication, 15 years of sacrifice, ended in a few black and white lines. For the first time in my life, I felt so small, so pathetic, like a grain of sand swept away by the ocean, and no one even noticed. From that day on, I changed. I couldn't sleep, dark circles under my eyes. I snapped at little Lily when she asked for help with math homework, even though I used to sit patiently with her for hours. I went silent with Sarah, even when she tried so hard to pull me out of my shell. I scrolled LinkedIn and saw old colleagues getting promoted, posting vacation photos, celebrating wins, while all I felt was bitterness. I started believing I was just a victim of an unfair world. And then came the second twist, the blow that made everything before it feel small. One chilly autumn afternoon, Sarah sat down in front of me on our old sofa. She tried to smile, but her eyes were red and her voice trembled. "Michael, I have a tumor." I heard every word, but my mind went completely blank. "Cancer. Early stage. The doctor says we need to start chemo right away." The world stopped spinning. I had thought losing my job was the biggest tragedy of my life. I had no idea what real tragedy felt like. I pulled her into my arms and felt her fragile body shaking. For the first time in years, I cried. Not from anger, but from pure fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of Lily growing up without her mother. That night, I sat alone in the dark living room, only streetlight coming through the window. I asked myself over and over, why us? Why Sarah? We didn't smoke, we ate healthy, we worked hard and lived decently. But life doesn't sign a fairness contract with anyone. It doesn't ask your permission before it strikes. The months that followed were endless days in the hospital. I held Sarah's hand through every round of chemo, watched her hair fall out in clumps, watched her skin turn pale, watched her force a smile every time Lily ran into the room asking, "Mommy, are you feeling better today?" Every single time, my heart felt like it was being squeezed. And in those quiet hours beside her, while she slept from the medicine, I finally faced a painful truth. Life is harsh. Not because it hates me, not because I did something wrong, simply because that's its nature. Random, indifferent, and merciless. And if I kept asking why me, I would miss the far more important question, who will I become because of this? I started changing the way I saw everything. I still drove Sarah to treatment every week. I still took Lily to school every morning, listening to her talk about her friends, laughing with her even when my heart felt heavy. I cooked simple meals full of love. I cleaned the house. I paid the bills even as our savings ran low. A new big job? It hadn't come yet, but I stopped waiting for some great opportunity. I learned to live in the present. I used to control everything with schedules, with 5-year plans and 10-year plans. Now, I controlled nothing. Not Sarah's health, not our future, not even tomorrow. But I realized I still controlled one thing, my attitude. I could choose bitterness and resentment and let the pain drown me. Or I could choose courage. Not the loud, flashy kind, but the quiet kind that shows up every single day, every single hour. Then, in the middle of our hardest time, the phone rang. It was Ryan, the man who had taken the job I once dreamed of. "Michael, I'm opening a new branch in Portland. I want you to come run it with me. Higher salary, bigger title. You deserve this." The opportunity had come back. Status, money, a chance to prove I wasn't a failure. But the condition was the same. Constant travel, 70 to 80-hour weeks, almost no time for family. I stayed silent, looking at Sarah sleeping on the hospital chair, her breathing so weak. Then I looked at the drawing Lily had made, hanging on the wall. A family of 4, including the dog we hadn't even gotten yet, standing under a rainbow. And in that moment, I understood. I had once traded my family for ambition. I had almost lost them while chasing what I called success. I took a deep breath and said, "Thank you, Ryan, but I have to decline." He laughed loudly on the phone. "Are you crazy, Mike? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Maybe I was crazy, but for the first time in my life, I chose what brought peace to my heart instead of what would make other people impressed. I took a much smaller job at a nonprofit organization that supports cancer patients. Lower salary, no fame, no one clapping when I came home. But every day I got to sit and listen to other people's stories, people fighting the same battle as Sarah. I got to help them find direction, find hope. And strangely, helping them helped me find hope again for myself. Time passed, those long, heavy months. Then, one spring morning, the doctor walked out, smiled gently, and spoke the two words I will carry in my heart forever: in remission. Sarah had beaten it. The cancer was gone. I cried right there in the hospital hallway, not because I had won at life, but because I had grown up. I had learned that life is not fair. Good people still get hurt. Hard work doesn't always bring the reward it deserves. But complaining changes nothing. Happiness doesn't just happen. It is built day by day, in the sleepless nights, in the hospital rooms, in the fear, in the hardest decisions. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is still saying yes to life, even when it's brutally unfair. So welcome the struggles and the pain as an inevitable part of living, or lift your head, look it straight in the eye and say, "I will be stronger than you. You cannot defeat me." That was the moment I chose, and that is the message I want to leave with you. Maybe right now you're standing in the middle of your own storm. Maybe you just lost your job. Maybe you just heard a diagnosis that stopped your heart. Or maybe you finally realized life isn't as fair as you once believed. I don't have perfect answers for you. I can only share what I've lived through. Hardship does not define you. How you respond to hardship, that defines you. You can let it bury you, or you can let it shape you, make you stronger, deeper, and more grateful. And one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now, you will look back and realize the moment you thought you had lost everything was exactly the moment you began to find what truly matters most in life. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of Michael Thompson's story. If this story touched you, please hit like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to Deep Life Stories so you never miss another meaningful story. Keep walking with us through the series 20 Most Important Things in Life, where we discover the deepest values of this journey called living. See you in the next story. May you always find light, even on the darkest days. Deep Life Stories, where stories touch the heart.